Welcome to another Crypto at Night episode. I hope you had a great week and things are continuing well and smooth. We're going to have ourselves an interesting night because tonight is Fact Night. Fact Night is really about answering the questions that people had, making sure that I connect with you, our viewers and our listeners, in a way that's relevant to what you care about. So we've had some people send us some questions. I'm going to try my best to answer those tonight. Also, last week, I mentioned a little bit something around some prizes being hidden inside some episodes, and you might have heard some dings during that episode. Well, tonight I'm going to explain what that's all about. Tonight, when you listen, there's going to be 12 distinct dings. When you put those words together that preceded those dings, those sounds, you'll be able to actually find potentially a little bit of Bitcoin that I've hidden inside of a wallet. See, those 12 words that are going to be dinged together create what's called a mnemonic key, or it's a set of words that you can use to actually create a private key, which is used for a wallet, which is, in cryptocurrency terms, where you keep your money. So therefore, I'm going to hide somewhere between $10 to $100 inside of a wallet. And the first person who's able to actually identify all these words will be able to access those funds and move them to their own personal wallet. So, have fun listening. So, to the questions. Oh, by the way, just to clarify, some of these wallets that you can use for this there's a BitPay wallet, which you can download on Android or Apple phones. You can also try the Samurai wallet. There's the blockchain.info wallet. And then there's a few other ones that exist out there. The Coinbase wallet. So just check around and find ones that allow you to put in your own keys. And that's what you'll be able to utilize to actually create this wallet and find that money. So let's look at these questions. Facts. First question that we had was, what is blockchain and all this stuff about? I keep hearing about cryptocurrencies. Well, if you listen to my prior ones, you might have already got a little bit of primer on some of these things. But really, blockchain is about people are working to create systems that represents their value, but blockchain is really just a data structure. It's a way of organizing information in a way that people can keep track of what's happening. Because imagine when you send an email. When you send an email, do you really send that original text that you typed to someone else? No. You make a copy, and that's sent through the lines, through the fiber optics, through the airwaves, until it arrives to the recipient. Then the recipient is able to read the information, but it's really just a copy. And how do you prove that that information was sent at the right time from the right person in the right place and that the next email that's sent is the authentic original? That's what blockchain allows you to do. It basically allows you to make every message that's sent tied to a timestamp as well as to, in this case, proof of work or some other type of metric of being able to determine that, hey, this is the true historical lineage, line of thought, line of history that makes me know that this is the official original copy. And they use cryptography in this case. So that's what blockchain is all about. And cryptocurrency is really just an expression of that technology of actually saying, hey, can we make transactions around money that actually leverage its ability to prove origination and ownership? So that's what blockchain and all this stuff is about, as well as cryptocurrencies. It's about a system to allow us to prove who owns something and to prove that this is the original copy or the true history of a digital asset or identity or component. Next question. What problems do blockchain tech and Bitcoin solve? Well, one thing that people believe that they solve is high fees. Now, is this actually totally true? It kind of depends on the blockchain, on the cryptocurrency you're talking about. For example, Bitcoin, in the past, it was really cheap to send money. However, now it can vary. Sometimes it's only a couple cents to $1 to $2. And if things get really, really crazy, you can pay quite a bit more. However, this is because it's a demand-driven market. There's only so much capacity to send messages, to send money, to send anything on these chains. So therefore, until you can increase the capacity for these chains to send more information, to make more transactions, well, then the fees might be a little bit higher. However, If you're sending millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars or even over $10,000, sometimes these fees are still less than what the banks are going to charge you or what some of these other financial organizations. So that's a real benefit to a lot of people. What else do they solve? Well, they also give you control, especially in light of whatever your geopolitical situation might be. If you're born aside Venezuela or you're born aside Zimbabwe or Iran, Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies offer you an ability to be able to control your finances in a way that you really couldn't before. Heck, even if you're born in the United States, it provides you the same exact thing. Because when you're born somewhere, you're typically restricted to the money of that place, to that monetary policy, to that valuation. And then you might not be in control over how much money is issued. You might not be in control over the debt to equity ratio inside your country. But with cryptocurrencies, you actually know what's happening. You can choose to participate in a system that matches your monetary interests. So you have control. It solves that problem, the lack of control around your monetary policy and your ability to transact in the way you want to transact. What other problems do blockchain tech and Bitcoin solve? Well, it solves trusted third parties. But what is this term, trusted? Trusted third parties. That's like your bank. That's like a broker dealer. That's anybody that's in between you and the transaction. So if I want to send money to someone inside England right now, I don't just send that money straight to that person in England. I have to go to my bank, and then my bank transfers it to their bank, and sometimes there's even intermediary between there just to get the money over there. Those are trusted third parties, people we trust to be able to act on our behalf. However, sometimes they charge us fees. Sometimes they have issues with delivery. Sometimes there's chargebacks. Sometimes there's so many different things that happen inside those systems. So if you can eliminate that person, you don't have to pay them anything, and you don't have to worry about any of the issues that they might have. So blockchain tech and Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, when designed correctly, solve this problem. They remove these trusted third parties and allow you to just focus on the protocol and the code. And then when you send money to that person, you know it'll work. You know it'll get there. You know what you're paying. And it'll be something that you decided on. It'll be something you agreed on. And another problem it solves is transparency. It's unclear what our banks do a lot of time. It's unclear what our financial institutions are doing. There's so much complexity in how our government works that sometimes doing something simple is way too complex. But blockchain technology, Bitcoin, and other cryptocurrencies, they provide you clarity. They provide you a clear expectation about what should happen, why it should happen, when it should happen. So that's one of the problems it solves, lack of transparency. And the last one that I believe it solves is community unification and execution. See, because historically, it's been hard to pull people together to agree on a vision, agree on a way of doing things. But blockchain technology and related technology, they allow people to say, hey, this is the world I envision. This is the way I envision money working. This is the way I envision my video games working. This is the way governance should work. This is the way real estate, this is the way so many various things should work. And you can choose to unify with people across the world from sea to shining sea and build together. So yeah, those are some of the problems I think that blockchain-related technology and Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies solve. High fees, lack of control due to your geopolitical location, the necessity of trusted third parties, transparency, and lack of community unification and ability to execute together. Yeah, those are some really good problems. You can kind of see why these technologies are so groundbreaking and so interesting to me and to others. It's because it's a platform for creating a new tomorrow, a different tomorrow, a stronger tomorrow, if we unify and work together around the right things. So let's go to some other questions. Here's a big one. Can I make money with Bitcoin? Can I make that money? Can I make that money? So here's the reality when it comes to Bitcoin. Bitcoin is designed around scarcity. there's only going to be so many Bitcoin ever created. So what that means is that it's directly affected by demand and supply curves. That means if more people want it and the supply is limited, that means the cost has to go up for the supply to go out. It's very simple math. So as more people demand and want to utilize Bitcoin, whether they view it as a way of paying for things or just a store of value, or as they just think it's an investment, as more people demand, look for it, want to use it, the greater its value. So people say if you look at the value of gold, they say, hey, Bitcoin can equal that or be a portion of that picture because gold is relatively scarce. Gold doesn't have a lot of intrinsic value use cases. I mean, it's used for some things in reality, but it's not like it's the most vital precious metal in the world. But we've identified it as a store of value, as something that we look to because it's scarce. Can Bitcoin serve that same role? And if so, how much of that role can it serve? Can it replace actually other monies that exist? Can it become the reserve for governments? If so, that means demand will be tremendous. And if demand is tremendous and there's only a little bit to pick from, that means value is going to increase. So can you make money with Bitcoin? Only if those conditions are met. Only if people are demanding and looking for it and increasing the valuation for it. If Bitcoin doesn't meet those expectations, then you might not be able to make money off of it. But I advocate people that you use it, you participate, you get your feet wet. You don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin because a Bitcoin might cost, right now, I believe it's around $10,000. Even if it's $20,000 or $5,000, you don't have to buy one whole Bitcoin. There's actually smaller fragments of that you can buy. It's actually a fractional up to 8 decimal places. So dollars, you can only get 1 cent. Like below that, you can't really do. When it comes to Bitcoin, you can get 0.000000001 Bitcoins. So you can afford that. You can put in some money to have a $10 worth, $5 worth, $15 worth. Experience the space, test it out. Use it to buy something. You can use it to buy gift cards, to go shopping some places. You can use it for gas, to pay rent in some places. I mean, check it out. See how it tastes. Are cryptocurrencies anonymous? People want to know, can you hide? Can the man keep watching you when you use Bitcoin? Well, Bitcoin is not anonymous. It's what they call pseudo-anonymous. Pseudo-anonymous means pseudo-anonymous. So pseudo-anonymous basically is saying, while it's not tied to your direct identity, it's not like it's tied to Jacob's wallet or Jehoshaphat's wallet or Jaquisha's wallet or Juanita's wallet. It's connected to a private key and public address, and that could be you or Joe Schmo around the corner. However, that identity is traceable because it's a ledger. So any transactions that wallet makes are able to be tracked by everybody who wants to take a look. So eventually, if you end up in a place where I'm purchasing something at a specific store and people know that that's happening, they'll be able to tie my transactions to the occurrence of that spend occurring to my location. And they'll be able to say, okay, this is this person. And from that on, they can trace that wallet and all transactions. So if you're using on-ramps and off-ramps like crypto exchanges and they report that to the government, well, that provides a space to be able to track you as an individual. So it's an identity that's not necessarily you, but it is trackable. So it's called pseudo-anonymous. It's a identity that's not correlated to your maybe natural citizenship. But there are ways to track it. So it's not anonymous. So if you're trying to do some nefarious deeds, be wary. This brings me to another relevant question. It says, what about Bitcoin and taxes? And as we said, if it's pseudo-anonymous and trackable, that means the government could find you. Potentially. So, I mean, of course, there's things you can do with like Tor or Onion protocols and other things to obfuscate, to hide who you are. But if you're cashing out, if you're going to an exchange and saying, okay, I made $20,000, A lot of these exchanges, Coinbase, for example, anything over $20,000, I believe, they agreed to report to the IRS or have available to report to the IRS. So therefore, you need to pay your capital gains taxes on your money. However, there's other ways you can actually report it as well. There's also the ability to report as income if you're a miner. That's if you're someone that's actually out there who's actually using equipment to mine cryptocurrencies, or you're doing other things and you get paid in cryptocurrency. Well, then it's income. It's income gain. So you're taxed just like it's regular income. And you take it the valuation at that point. And then a new valuation that might increase would be considered capital gains. However, here's something very important to know. This year in 2019, if you make capital gains from cryptocurrencies or real estate or property, you can actually defer those taxes for up to 10 years by investing in opportunity zones. And if you're interested, reach out to me and Gamma Ventures, because we have some work being done to take advantage of that very strong tax incentive. Because after 10 years, any new accrual is tax-free. So that's a strong incentive for people who are actually cashing out this year or who cashed out last year. So, yes, Bitcoin taxes and cryptocurrencies, you should pay them. Pay the government. As a great man once said, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. Next question was, how is value established? I believe we kind of referred to that question already, but is established by demand. There's a limited supply, so therefore the only thing that changes is demand, and that adjustment leads you to your price. Here's an interesting question. Is there only one blockchain? There can be only one. I want to be the very best. No one everywhere. Boom, boom, boom. So, no, there is not only one blockchain. There's a lot of blockchain-related technologies that are out there. Bitcoin, Ethereum, these are all based on blockchain data structures. Tron, EOS, Cardano, a bunch of these blockchains actually leverage that particular data structure. There are other structures that exist. There's one that's called the DAG, which is a directed acyclic graph. That one's basically allows you to structure your transactions in a totally different way. And we'll talk about that in the future. I'm really a fan of them. So next question, what is a fork? So people might have heard about forks in the chain. So if a blockchain is actually a history and origination that's linear, that allows you to stack every transaction to a line that's one after other, then what happens when there's a disagreement or there's a change that you want to have occur? Well, that's what a fork is. It's basically when there's a diversion, when there's a change in what the protocol says and how people are making agreements. And that fork can be quite controversial at times. So over the last couple of years, even Bitcoin has had some significant forks. There was Bitcoin Cash, and then there was Bitcoin SV more recently. And what these forks have been about is about protocol adjustments to either improve efficiency or hold to a vision that wasn't quite in alignment with how the protocol was currently working. And if everyone doesn't agree to make that change within the blockchain space, that's a fork. Forks are interesting because it's really about the community splitting and representing different values as they move forward, but saying we have a shared heritage, a shared history. So what does that mean? It means that value splits, utilization splits, direction changes. And then if it's not well done, if the community isn't really behind it, that fork might die or it could flourish. So that's the one thing to be aware of at all times. Bitcoin, for example, there is other Bitcoin, quote unquote, that exists that share that same origination. Bitcoin Cash is one great example. Their goal was to move towards something that was closer to a payment system, about treating money as money. They wanted to allow people to be able to have lower fees, larger blocks, and operate in a way that they felt was more in alignment with how Bitcoin should function to take over the world. So they split, and they've been doing all right. They have a different perspective, and that's just one fork. Ethereum actually had a fork as well. Back in the day, I believe it was 2014 or was it 16? Well, basically, they split into Ethereum Classic and Ethereum. There was an issue that occurred around a particularly large decentralized autonomous organization, or DAO or DAO. And some people wanted to let the DAO flop. Other people wanted to be able to retroactively make some changes to fix it. The people that want to just let it flop and move forward after this particular hacking event occurred created Ethereum Classic. They believe it to be immutable. They want to say, hey, when it comes to blockchain-related technology, we shouldn't be making interventions like this. So they went on their own path, and they continue to thrive and work to this day. And Ethereum, the one that actually made the reversion or revision to the chain to actually recoup some of those funds, still exists to this day and is doing very well, because they both had communities supporting their vision. So that's forks. Another question is, what is mining? I believe we talked about mining already, but mining is essentially a way of performing work in the pursuit of being able to mint or create or acquire the new tokens or money that's going to be within that particular cryptocurrency. Within Bitcoin, you're basically trying to mine the next few Bitcoins. You're doing hard puzzles, and if you solve it first, you get the opportunity, you get to mint, to create a special transaction to give yourself some newly created Bitcoin. That's all mining is. Another important question people ask is it safe? Is it secure? I mean, the cryptography that is underlying Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are typically pretty robust. They're using what's called elliptical key cryptography, and this is very secure. I mean, given the current technology that exists, there's no reason to believe that they'll be hacked anytime soon. Now, your private key, which is your way of accessing funds, needs to be protected, because if someone sees what it is, they will be able to actually access your funds. So that's the cost to these systems. There are private wallets, there's these keys, there's these numbers you have to maintain, and there's no backup. There's no one else who's going to say, oh, I can reverse that transaction for you. But if you keep that secure, these chains are very secure in the current short term. Now, they do have a future threat around quantum computing, but that's not expected for at least the next 5 years. And then the last question that we had is, what about the government? I mean, the government, first of all, the government is actually, I'm speaking from a perspective of being in the United States, has so far had a very, how would I say, a very loose but aware approach to Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. There was an ICO craze that happened and then really branched the line between people trying to do something that seemed like an IPO, except for using a different technology, and other people just doing regular crowdfunding. So there's been a lot of clarification around that particular area. But in general, as long as a network right now, it seems, has a robust level of participation and decentralization by a number of parties and not controlled by any core individuals or organization, they've been treated as freedom of speech. And the government has allowed this to operate. Now, there are now conversations happening around Libra, which is a Facebook push related digital payment system. And then there's also a lot of discussion around Bitcoin recently, because there was some tweets by President Trump about Bitcoin and how he felt about them. I mean, right now, no one's trying to shut it down. And the reality is, no one can really shut Bitcoin down, because it's not just in one country. It's not just in one place. It's not controlled by any one individual. It's ubiquitous. It's robust and it's secure and it's something that can withstand even censorship by the government. So it's not something I'm quite worried about when it comes to cryptocurrencies, as long as you're shooting for a system that is for the people and designed to be supported by the people and not by any one particular individual or organization. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope that it was informative. And I want you to make sure if you have follow-up questions, leave them in the comments. Send me a tweet, send me an email, connect with me on Facebook. Make sure you subscribe. Subscribe. Make sure you subscribe. You know you want to. You know you want to. Press it. Just do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. Also, please don't forget to look and see if you got all 12 of the words to actually use them to get that Bitcoin. And also, I would be disappointed myself if I didn't shout out Ansari Anari, the creator of OWO, who has also had a rap that he made recently where he hid some Bitcoin inside his song. I'm not quite sure how much he hid inside of his songs, but you should check out his videos and listen. He did it. He had those about in January or earlier this year. But he said no one's found it yet. So that's another opportunity to get some Bitcoin for relatively free. All right? So have a good night. Sleep tight. This is Crypto at Night.